This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, who loves a blue cheeseburger, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to Running for Real episode number 51. I am really excited that you are here. This is the first time I am touching the microphone since I had my daughter, Bailey Grace. I will introduce you to her or tell you more about her, I guess, in a few weeks' time. But this episode is a bit of a different one, so I want to get into it. Now, before I begin, I just want to say that speaking of Bailey, she is behind me with Steve, my husband, and we do have lullabies playing, so maybe you can hear that in the background, but we are hoping that she stays quiet while I am able to record this. So let's get on with it. Now, last week we had the one and only Cara Goucher, and I'd love to hear what you thought of that one. We're told not to meet our heroes or our role models, but in this case, I'm so glad I did get the opportunity to meet Cara. Even more that we had the time to talk. I was really lucky to get that, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Now, today we have a bit of a unique one. Now, you may be a member of my community, the Running for Real Superstars, or maybe you've just heard me talking about it. I'd love for you to join if you haven't already. It is free to join and it is a wonderful place to be. Even if you just create a Facebook page solely for that reason, you'll see that I actually did that and you should come join us too. Now, I get a lot of requests to hear more about everyday people, those of you who inspire me. And yes, I mean you listening. You might think that you're just a middle of the pack or a back of the pack runner, but if we meet, there's a good chance you've probably said to me something along the lines of, I'm just a recreational runner, or I'm not that fast, or I'm just a finish line runner, just as everyone does. But my response is always to cut that person off and tell you that you are just as much a runner as I am, and believe me when I say you inspire me too. You work full time, you're a master's runner, you've overcome some really tough stuff, you're a mother of 4, the list goes on, but I really mean it. Runners inspire one another all the time, and I thought it would be good to bring on some quote-unquote everyday runners from the Running for Real Superstars community who have inspired others in the group, who have made others feel good, and who are heroes in their own right. Now, I thought I was kind of addressing this, everyday runners thing with some of the guests I've had on lately, like Kiralee Deer and Richie Hardcore, and maybe you felt like that was the case, but I thought this would be fun to go one step even further and have you meet some of these people. So I have 6 superstars here for you. We'll get to learn a little about each of their lives, and each of them has something that we can all learn from. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode if you enjoy it. And if we do enjoy it, I think there will be more of these in the future. So hopefully you do, but if you don't, please feel free to let me know. Now, let's take a moment to thank our wonderful sponsors, V and Body Health, and then you will get to meet Eddie Valen, Peg DiBiase, David Skitty, Sarah Williarty, Peter Davy, and Lauren Stern-Calamar. So let's get to it. Have you ever noticed how much easier training can be when you have someone there to keep you accountable, motivated, and focused? V can be there for you to help you through the rest of these tough months and get to enjoy your running again. You can enter to win a V at getv.com/running for real. New year, new you. Well, kind of. By now, most of us know that big New Year's resolutions really don't stick most of the time. But small ones that we can actually stick to, they will make a heck of a difference. Just like adding Body Health Perfect Amino to your routine made a big difference for me, and it could to you too. Eddie Valen, I cannot believe we have you on the Running for Real podcast right now. I know the superstars in the community are very eager to learn more about you, although everyone feels like they kind of know you already. I mean, I know you've been featured in a few dreams, including one of mine. I have had a dream once where you were involved in it. Can't remember what we were doing right now. I did tell the people at the Indianapolis Monumental Marathon that you were in my dream the day before. So you're very, very well known in our community. So firstly, welcome to the podcast, but tell us, who is the real Eddie Valen for the people that just see your name, kind of see you interacting in the community? Tell us a bit about you in general.
Well, I'm 43 years old.
Oh, you're admitting it.
What's that?
You're admitting it on the air, huh? That's
Yeah,
brave.
that's all right. I like to be upfront with that. This way I can always, I like to tell people I'm like 47 or 48. This way they're like, "Oh, wow, good job."
Okay.
And I'm a firefighter, a husband and a father. My daughter is 11. My wife is a superstar as well. She loves to check in and see how everybody's doing. She doesn't participate as much as I do, but how many people do?
Well, from the poll we took a few weeks ago, there was quite a few people who are at Eddie Valen levels when we did for those listening who are not sure what I'm talking about, we did a poll in the community of how often people spend time on there. And one of the options was, I'm at Eddie Valen levels. Which Eddie did not put himself. Oh no, you did put yourself.
I did.
David, who asked the question, did not do it himself.
I figured someone else wouldn't want to put me out there like that, so I just went ahead and did it.
No, it was funny seeing it. And you mentioned that you're a firefighter. Now that obviously means you work shifts.
Yes.
Now, adding shifts to running brings a whole new level. So before we kind of go into your background just a little bit, tell us a bit about the shift work. How do you negotiate your runs around, some crazy hours that you might work?
You have to be just totally open to running whenever. I always try to run in the best weather, but that's not possible if you worked all night and then you took a nap and you woke up at noon and you have to be somewhere by 2 and it's pouring rain out. Well, you just got to go out and do it if that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Do you always work nights then?
Well, that's the thing is I work 2 days and then I work 2 nights and then I have a block of time where I don't have to be at work if I don't want to be. Okay. So I can be at work during those 4 days off is what I like to call them, but I don't have to be if I don't want to be.
Okay.
So the nights, just working the 2 nights, it kind of works out for me because I don't know, I can run during the day before my night. And then when I get home from that shift, if I feel like it, I can run that day again. I usually don't run between the 2 nights. But then the second night in, I always say to myself, well, what more can they do to me? I have time off now if I want it. It's pretty flexible, but I have to be flexible too. That's the big thing is like, you can't have a plan. You have to have, or I guess you can have a plan just so you know what to deviate from.
Yeah.
You can know how far you've gone awry kind of thing.
Well, you've been able to get your training in even with those shifts. And you also, you have been one of the strong stars using Drew and I's strength training program, which I know you've been very committed to. So despite the shifts, you have managed to get things in, which has been great and good advice for people. I know we do have some shift workers out there about being flexible, which is difficult because as runners, we tend to be very type A. I want things to work in this order and, good advice to try and be flexible.
That doesn't work. Yeah.
No, I can.
Otherwise you just become more cranky.
Yep. And I'm learning that definitely with a daughter here that you can't, if I say I'm leaving the house at a certain time, I can't necessarily make that happen no matter how much I might try and plan. So we all learn it in different stages of our lives. Now, you mentioned, you are a runner. We obviously know that, but with your background, tell us about how you began running, because it's kind of interesting and something that, maybe other people can relate to in their individual journeys towards running.
Sure. I can get to my master's running is what I like to call it, the after 40. But I ran in high school. I have no idea what drew me towards running cross country. I just one day I was there.
That's what I feel like, actually. Same thing.
Yeah, just one day I was there and I really enjoyed it. And I went to Division II college and I started running there. And then I realized the difference between boys' high school running and men's college running. Mm-hmm. And I'm still waiting to bloom like some of ththose men were, like the big muscles and everything like that. That has never happened to me. So once I was standing there on the line with these other 6'2", 180 pounds, and I was still, 150 and 5'8" in college. It wasn't going to happen for me. So I ended up getting an injury. I tore a hamstring in college, and it was probably the best thing because I wasn't going to be competitive at any level. And I still had it in my head that I was going to be competitive. So it was kind of a easy way of letting me down, kind of. So then I took this extremely long break. and, life happens and you have a kid and you start to slow down. And then I got this great job at the fire department, and I was, super like physically fit to get on the job. And then I just kind of got lax, and I gained a lot of weight, and I became super unhealthy, and I wasn't doing strength training. I wasn't doing any exercise. I was just zero exercise. And I just started getting back pain. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, we need to do like a physical. And the results came back from blood work and just, sitting in the doctor's office, just sitting there. My heart rate was like up above 90.
Wow. Just
sitting there. Yeah. So I was way overweight. I was way unhealthy. And the doctor just had that heart to heart with me, kind of just said, look, you can do one of two things. You're a young man. You're 41 years old. You can go and, start to turn your life around through exercise and nutrition, or you can go on medicine and just put a Band-Aid on this and be sick for the rest of your life. And she basically said, like, look, you're a firefighter. This isn't good for the public to see. This isn't good for your health. You go from the term zero to hero. Mm-hmm. You're sitting there for 1 second having breakfast, and the next second you could be in the second story of a building trying to save someone else's life. It's not fair to that person for you to be like this. And those are the words from the doctor.
Wow.
And I really took it to heart.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I wasn't taking it serious as before. And then so I said, well, I know how to run. Let's start there. And I possibly did everything that you could possibly do wrong. I was like going out like a time trial every single time. Like, okay, I ran 29 minutes. I could beat that next time. I ran 28:59. I could beat faster next time. And then I started getting all these pains. But thank goodness I found this run club that I belong to now. And I met some really smart people that do triathlons and marathons and 5Ks and all this stuff. And they kind of set me straight. They said, you're doing it all wrong. You need to slow down and enjoy the run. Go slow, go longer, and you'll start to feel better about it, and you won't have so many injuries. And it worked out for me. I'm here. I feel the best I've ever felt because of the strength training. That was the one thing I didn't have the first year, was the strength training. Now the strength training is kind of like erased some of those like real serious pains that I used to have. Now it's just, niggle mania because I'm a little bit older and, probably not ready for exactly what I want to do, but yeah. I'll eventually get there.
Yeah, no, really cool. Thank you for sharing, and something I think a lot of people can resonate with, as many may have began their journey, maybe not with the firefighting route, but just kind of something similar to that, and having that reality check. And good you had that doctor that was able to do that. And thank you for what you just said about the strength training. That's really cool. For anyone listening, Drew Watts and I, my strength coach, do offer strength training, individualized, created just for you. Actually goes on sale again April 1st. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do. You can go to tinamio.com/run strong. Okay, Eddie, just to kind of wrap up here, we are talking about the Superstars community, which you are probably the best known, the most known member of the community. What is it about the community that you like the most?
I don't know. I kind of just like making the relationships, It's I don't know, it's a great place. It's you get involved in people's lives, and I don't know, it's kind of fun. I like conversation. I like to see people. I go to the bank and I talk to people in line. I talk to the teller. I go to the grocery store. I talk to the person at the register or the person behind me. Like I don't know. I was always brought up like that. My mother just instilled that in us. Be kind, and everybody's got their story to tell. Sometimes I don't do the best job listening. Sometimes I like to just yammer on. But if I keep my lips closed for long enough, I can hear some cool stuff.
You're reminding me right now of Tom Hanks in Castaway. Like you could be someone who had a Wilson and talk to your ball with the pad.
Easily. I talk to absolutely everybody and everything, constant.
But we love you for it, so thank you so much. And then finally, to wrap up with two of the Running for Real questions here, tell us a high moment in your running.
The high moment in my running was probably that the first 5K when I came back and I was still doing everything wrong. Mm-hmm. It was really the catalyst. Like, I came across the line somewhere between 26 and 27. And I had this like spark inside of me. And it was like, wow, you could do this again. Like, you were training for like 2 months. After coming back, you're wicked overweight. You're still unhealthy. And look at what you did. It's like, I don't know. It made me feel young again.
Oh.
And it was like, from that moment on, I was like, man, I'm going to be 17 again. I am going to be 17. Here I come. And it never really happened like that. But I quickly realized I was still 40 something. But I don't know. It's just I loved it.
That's great. Really cool. And that could also probably be a running for real moment as well, as most people have had that moment where they kind of realize this is it. This is what I love. But tell us a different one. Give us something that was a running for real moment.
I'd have to go all the way back to 17. Oh. And it was the first time that I felt that euphoria from running. There was a young man that I was very competitive with from another school. And I was always, just a few seconds behind him, or like right at the tape, like just always behind him. And, my coach always said, stay with that guy, stay with that guy, stay with that guy. And it never, somewhere along the 2 mile mark or whatever it was, doing cross country. And also we ran the mile against each other too, which I wasn't a good miler. I just happened to be thrown into that pile. I preferred the 200 and the 110 hurdles, but for some reason, because we didn't have enough guys, I'd run all those other races. Anyway, the euphoria was at the regional championship, and I just had this feeling with 0.1 to go, and we were neck and neck through the woods the whole way, that there was no way that this guy was going to beat me. And something just took over my body. And there was no stopping. It was just something like, there was no limits. It was zero limits. I wasn't going to pull a hamstring. I wasn't going to, run out of like lung capacity. My muscles weren't going to stop. Nothing was going to stop me. And I blew his doors off in the last 0.1. And I had my best time that time too. And it was, I don't know, it was definitely my running for real moment. And I always try to capture that, even though the times are way slower. And I come across the line that strong, and I can blow somebody's doors off at the end, even if they're like 75 years old. I don't care. I still feel good.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing. And definitely you can be one of those people who talks about the glory days with that memory right there.
I love it. It makes you feel good.
That's great. Well, Eddie, thank you so much for all that you do in the community, for sharing your story with us right now. This has been great to learn. I know people have loved hearing about you, hearing the voice behind Eddie Valen. Actually, speaking of that, one more thing. Since I first met you in Rhode Island, I don't know if anyone else listening is going to notice this, but I think you sound like someone. I wasn't planning on saying this on the podcast, but I'm going to be brave and I'm going to say it. Has anyone ever told you sound like someone from a movie?
No. I usually get you have such a high-pitched voice, or you have I don't know. You remind me,
I hope this isn't going to offend you, and I'm doing this completely out there, so anyone listening is probably laughing at me right now. You remind me of Timon from The Lion King. Your voice. Yeah,
that sounds like it. That's exactly what it's like. Probably,
that's what I thought the first time I spoke to you, and I finally said it in front of everyone, so everyone's going to be laughing at me. But yeah.
No, I've always had that my whole entire life, And the other thing is loud. I'm also very loud.
But we love you for it.
I don't know where that came from, but...
Well, thank you, Eddie. This has been great.
Thank you, Tina. Bye, superstars.
Peg, I am so excited to have you here on the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today, for getting a little bit about who you are. So thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for asking me. I was really surprised when you did.
Oh, no, of course. You're one of the people in the community that inspire people more than anyone. And actually, maybe we can begin with the biggest reason that people kind of, resonate and look up to you is, you and I were just talking a minute ago before we started recording about how your accident where you were hit by a car was just over a year ago now. And, it really caught the attention and the kind of the hearts of many of our community when you talked about that. You had so many setbacks along the way. Maybe you could just tell the listeners who may not know about it what happened, and then how you managed to stay positive, while this was going on with all these different setbacks happening.
It was a year ago, 2 weeks ago, I ran a 10K race in the morning, and it was about 9 o'clock, and I wanted to go to an 11 o'clock yoga class. and I had 2 hours to kill. So I drove to the mall across the street from the yoga studio, and I thought, well, I'll run a mile and back and have some breakfast and go to yoga because my legs had gotten stiff sitting in the car. Well, a quarter of a mile into that run, a 90-year-old gentleman was making a left turn across 3 lanes of traffic, and he didn't see me, and apparently I didn't see him, because the next thing I knew, I was waking up in the emergency room with them stapling my head back together. I don't remember the accident very much at all. I don't remember the ambulance ride. I only remember the aftermath. Mm-hmm. And I was really pretty fortunate. I mean, considering that I'm soon to be 63, and I went for a 25-foot ride on the hood of a car. I had nothing broken, nothing in my face. I was cut up and bruised and pretty beat up, but no broken bones that we were aware of at the time. It turned out a few months later that I had torn 2 meniscuses in my right knee. Mm-hmm. I had a separated shoulder and a piece of broken off bone spur in my shoulder. So that was really the worst of the injuries.
Yeah.
In terms of keeping positive, I didn't really think I had much of a choice.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to be alive and moving and walking and mobile. That it was pretty easy to, I mean, I had my down days when I could walk 2 houses down the street and I had run a marathon a month earlier. Mm-hmm. But I just kept going. I mean, the ER doctor, when she released me, said, your running has kept you strong. Keep moving as much as you can. That's what your body needs to get rid of all that blood that's under your skin. I mean, I was purple from head to toe. Mm-hmm. I joked that I looked like Frankenstein's monster. I had these 2 big black eyes and 8 staples in the side of my head. And I mean, I was really, I couldn't wear my clothes. Our neighbor had to give me her husband's button-down shirts because I couldn't put any of my clothes on. I was swollen.
Yeah, it'd be amazing the amount of things that probably had to change in your life during that time to kind of handle it. And obviously at that point, running wasn't even...
Getting dressed was a big problem.
Yeah, yes, definitely. I can imagine for sure. And, at that point, running wasn't even probably in your mind because, like you said, you were grateful to be alive. And one thing you did mention in our community was about you celebrated your Alive Day. On the day that it happened, kind of celebrating the fact that you are still here and you are okay. And, it must have been difficult for you, beyond the period where you were grateful, or maybe you're still in that period right now, when you were kind of starting to run again, maybe starting to move again, and the trauma, the initial trauma had kind of faded in your mind. For anyone who's struggling with like a long setback and return to running, it's taken you nearly a year to kind of get going again. What would you say to someone just to give them a bit of advice with dealing with, long-term injuries?
I think just being patient. It took me months to walk a mile.
Yeah.
And I had to just learn to be patient with doing whatever my body was ready to do at the time. And I'm still trying to listen to it. I still have knee pain even after the knee surgery. I still have shoulder pain. The doctor told me it's probably going to be another 6 months before my shoulder is completely healed because they literally hang you like a side of beef and it stretches all the tendons out. So it's going to be a while. And every day I just do what I can do. Yeah. And I try not to sweat what I can't do.
No, that's great.
That doesn't get you very far.
I love your attitude and just the way you've approached this, and it it is inspiring. And for people listening, Peg hasn't always been a runner who's someone who's done this since she was 20 years old. Another thing that you did that was inspiring is you started running again at 56. Now many people, not hopefully in this community, but many people kind of see that as, oh, that's too old to start running. But maybe tell us about why you didn't think that was the case and why you decided to start running again at 56.
I actually started out walking. I had been heavy my entire adult life. I had always weighed approximately 240 pounds, a couple times 30 pounds more than that. And I finally, at 56, thought, I'm going to be my parents with the pill bottles lined up on the counter unless I do something about this. Mm-hmm. So I started with the goal of just walking every day. And I got to the point where I was walking 4 or 5 miles a day, but I couldn't get my heart rate up anymore. And I had lost about 50 pounds. I had about 20 that I wanted to lose. And I just started running again. I remembered having run in my 20s and enjoying it when work and school and stuff got in the way, and I just stopped. And I'd always been active, and I was still active. So I just started running a little bit and walking a little bit and running a little bit, walking a little bit, until I got to the point where I was running 4 or 5 miles a day. And then some friends convinced me that I could do a half marathon, and I told them they were nuts.
Well, before you go on with that, I want to just add something in here. So Peg initially, when she started running again, said she was never going to race, and since you've done 44 races from what I know. So continue on, but I just wanted to add that in there because it is kind of interesting that that was never your intention.
Yeah, I never wanted to race because I spent my whole corporate career being a type A and obsessing about things, and I wanted running to be fun. I didn't want it to be a job. So I said I was never going to race because I knew I could get myself worked up into doing more than I should. Mm-hmm. But some friends convinced me I should do a half marathon to help them raise money for charity. A friend of mine's husband has early onset Parkinson's, and a group was going to get together to run the Baltimore half marathon to raise money for Parkinson's disease. So like a fool, I agreed to do it. And at the time, I'd never run more than 5 miles. But a year later, I ran 13. And I've since done, 20-something half marathons. I swore I'd never do a full, and I got talked into doing one of those. And I've since done 3. I think I've thrown those shoes away, though, although I never say never.
Well, we will see. Yeah, it sounds like you have been able to change your mind over time, and you never know. And you are a very ambitious person. I know you lived in Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For 6 months a year for 8 years. So, you've done stuff like that. You've overcome so much. Just one more question before we get on to the final questions. With the racing, you said you're a type A person. You're obviously ambitious. How do you go out there as an older runner, kind of not putting these expectations and let that competitiveness kind of take over? How do you keep yourself enjoying it?
It's kind of a balance. In the beginning, I did get caught up in let's get another PR, let's beat this person, let's beat that person. But realistically, I'm never going to win any prize money. I mean, at my age, I wasn't talented. I keep telling people, think plow horse, not race horse. I can go far, I don't go fast. And I got caught up in that for a while, but it was starting to take the fun out of it. Mm-hmm. So I reminded myself that, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to prove anything to me or anyone else. I want to just go have fun. So most races, I never look at my watch. I have no idea what pace I'm running. A lot of times I stop and talk to people. I've helped other people finish their races when they were struggling, and they kept saying, "Oh, just go. I'm holding you back." I was like, "Well, I don't care when I finish, so you're not holding me back."
Oh, that's so special. Just again shows how thoughtful you are, Peg. So thank you for all that you do in the running community. And just to wrap up here, tell us a high moment for you in your running.
Toss up between finishing my first marathon, because I really wasn't sure I could do it, and doing my 1 year alive race a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we love that. Love seeing that. And so, I can imagine. And finally, what about a running for real moment?
Well, getting hit by a car was a good one, although I don't really remember it, so I'm not sure it was a real running for real one.
I think that is a good one to mention, though, because it could happen to any of us. We all think we're invincible, but it really could.
It really could. I'm incredibly careful, and my massage therapist continues to say, "I don't know how you got hit by a car." He said, "You're the most careful runner I know," and yet it still happens.
Definitely a moment and one we probably wouldn't have by anyone else. So thank you for sharing. And Peg, thanks for all that you do for inspiring me, inspiring the community. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for building such a wonderful community.
David, thank you so much for joining me on this special episode of the Running for Real podcast. Now, in this special series episode, I should say, getting to know the Running for Real superstars, I want to hear a bit about you. You are living in a different country to many of the superstars, as we are mostly based in the US. You are living in Madrid in Spain, which I'm sure most people are very jealous of. Sounds very exotic and glamorous, I guess, maybe. So maybe you could tell us a bit about living in Spain for those who are curious. What is it like? How popular is running? Is it something that you feel like you're alone in, and that's why you've kind of connected with the US, superstars, or is there something else that you'd like to share with us about running in Spain?
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Well, no, actually quite the opposite. Spain is running is super popular here. I think every weekend they cut off Madrid, the center of Madrid. And I think actually people are getting a little bit tired of it because they have to cut traffic every weekend. But yeah, no, it's very, very popular.
So can I just ask, you say cut it off, like as in they, want to leave it open to runners, or is it for races or something?
Oh, no, for races. Okay. Yeah. They cut off the center. There's like a big main street that goes through Madrid. And that's like one of the most popular running streets. So they usually cut that off, and then, Sunday mornings anyway, so it's not too bad.
Mm-hmm. And then what about, when it comes to the heat, is that really a factor, or do you just get used to running in the warmer weather, or is it not actually as warm as we might think?
Is it? I don't think it's as bad as people probably imagined. Yeah, sure. You got July and August that gets like 40 degrees Celsius. It was like 100 plus something Fahrenheit. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you just have to organize. You have to get up early or run late in the evening, and it usually cools down again, and then you can find a good moment. But yeah, running in the middle of the day is really, it's not a good idea. It's really,
I can imagine, and probably
really
quite stuffy as well, with it being a bigger city.
The air here is very dry, but we do have a bit of problems with contaminations, etc. So
interesting.
Yeah, you wanna avoid the middle of the day.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. All right, so I want to talk just a minute about your running journey. So you started running in 2012. What made you go from kind of not being a runner to now, fast forward 2018, you're so passionate and engaged with the running community, wanting to learn as much as you can. What was it that made that switch for you?
I think actually it was, I started running just a little bit like for fun. I needed to do some exercise. I hadn't really done much for many, many years since probably I was like in my 20s or something like that. And then at one moment I decided to, start running a bit. And then I had a student who used to do like these popular races at the weekends. And he said, I have to sign up with him and do a 10K. And it was like, wow, 10K sounds like a bit of a challenge, but I signed up for him. I started taking a bit more serious, and that was it. I was hooked after that. And then I think I started doing all the typical things, all the mistakes that all the new runners, they do in the beginning. I started running faster and longer and didn't follow any plans or anything. I just added more kilometers all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I think we often all fall into that trap, and many of the other traps.
And we know what happens.
Yes, we've all done it, and it's almost essentially a rite of passage. And now you've kind of got to the point where you're being successful. Yes, you've had ups and downs, as we all do, and kind of a good reminder to people that even if you do kind of get it, essentially, you still kind of struggle. And I hope I've made that clear. But now you are a big fan of what I call No Watch Me. In the community, we talk about No Watch Me a lot, which means running by feel, not wearing a watch, but not looking at your watch. And you've been kind of someone that has really bought into this and kind of understood why it works. So for someone who is skeptical, they may see this No Watch Me thing kind of thrown around. What would you say to them to kind of convince them that maybe running by effort, not looking at your watch in a pace, is kind of the way to go?
Oh yeah, definitely. That was probably one of the biggest changes that's happened in my running recently. And I think you described it perfectly in some of your blog posts, that you just have to trust your body with this. You wake up in the morning, you don't know how you're going to feel. You don't know if your body is ready to running at a faster pace or a slower pace. And if your training plan says you're supposed to run like 5 minutes per kilometer or 8 minutes per mile or whatever it is, but you're not really ready for that, maybe you haven't slept well, etc., just listen to your body that day. Maybe you need to slow down a bit. And quite the opposite as well. If you had another day where you feel fantastic, you can speed up and you can give it a little bit extra, as long as you just find that effort that really matches you. Yeah. And I think it's made a big difference in how I run. And now you feel free at the same time as well, which I really enjoy. You don't have this like looking at the watch and you have to like not look around where you're running now. You can just go and enjoy it and have fun with it.
Yeah, and that's great. And I've loved kind of watching you do that, and many others too. And if you don't know what No Watch Me is, if you are listening to this podcast and you're a little confused, you can go to my website, tinamuir.com, type in No Watch Me or even just effort, and it will come up. Now, as I mentioned, this is a special episode focusing on the Running for Real Superstars, a community that we have. What is it about the community that you enjoy the most?
Well, the community itself, the people.
Yes.
I think it's really amazing. I mean, every time you log on to the internet and you go and you read comments on on any kind of forum you enter, on YouTube or anywhere, people are so negative. It's like you go down 2 or 3 comments and people immediately start criticizing and name calling and that. And in this community, there's none of that. It's just friendly people helping each other and always willing to lend a hand and come up with good ideas if people need inspiration or something. So
yeah, I absolutely love it too. And you are a huge part of that.
Positive.
And, you are someone, we call you, our private joke is that you are bad cop. So you mentioned not having any negativity in there. If we do see someone who is negative or kind of being, overly self-promoting, usually we kick them out because we want to keep it that positive and happy, engaged community. So thank you for your part in helping us there. And David is a prized member of the community.
But that's the easiest job in the world because there's really none of that. I don't have to do anything. True. So right. Okay, and just to round up here, we're going to ask you 2 of the running 3 or 4 questions, starting with a high moment. Well, a high moment would probably be not about my own running, but one time I paced my girlfriend to her first 5K, and it was absolutely amazing. She was like suffering all the way through, and she was about to stop a lot of time, and she thought she was going to die. She was like really having a bad time. And when she finally got to the finish line, I mean, the look on her face was just absolutely amazing. It was worth all the effort. So
that is so special, isn't
moment.
It? Yeah. When you get to help someone else towards a great race themselves, it really is such a wonderful feeling. And so cool that is your high moment of all the things. That just shows how thoughtful and selfless you are. And finally, what about a running for real moment that you'd like to share with us?
This one, I think I shared it as well on the forum, on the group. This is a bit embarrassing, but I had been drinking beet juice in the morning before I had a big race. And I went out to the race way too hard. And when I was about halfway through, my stomach just didn't hold up anymore. And I just had to start vomiting.
Oh, no.
What happened was that this was right in the center of Madrid.
Oh, no.
In front of all the tourists, in front of everyone who had come up in the morning. And it was like this red. Yeah, it is not very nice. I'm sorry about it, but I'm sure I scared a few people in.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet people thought you were, dying on the side of the road with blood coming out your mouth. I bet that would have been. I'd be quite scared if you ran past me doing that. So to all the people, if any of you happen to be listening when you saw a man puking up some nice red stuff, this is the explanation here. Okay, David, well,
wipe it off and keep going.
Yeah, and I'm sure you did because you are tough and definitely not willing to let it kind of hold you back in any way, and that's great. David, thank you so much for answering the questions today, for letting us get to know you a little bit more. We appreciate all that you do and look forward to getting to know you more in the future.
It was fun. Thank you.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. I am really excited that you are here and looking forward to kind of diving in with you I know you've inspired many in the group, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you say about, your journey and how things have developed for you. So thanks for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
No, this is fun. And you are a valued member of the community and kind of, I guess, famously known for having this injury that seemed to be around for a lifetime. We all felt like you were injured for months and months and months, and maybe it was that long. You can kind of tell the listeners about, what did happen with your plantar fasciitis, a very common injury. But maybe just tell us a bit about what happened, how long it was, and how you managed to stay positive when, this just seemed to be dragging on and on and on.
Sure. Well, it started in July 2016. I'm a political scientist for my job, and I had gone to Berlin for the summer with my family. Mm-hmm. And I think I brought everything that 2 kids and a husband and a researcher could need, but I did not bring new running shoes. I had a couple of pairs of really worn out shoes. And I ran a lot in Berlin on cobblestones, and it didn't take too long before the plantar fasciitis cropped up. When I came home and got new shoes and tried to get it under control, but then I started training for the Philadelphia Marathon, and it just spiraled. Mm-hmm. And so then I was really out of running from about October 2016 till July 2017.
So that was, even though I said it felt like a long time, it actually was. And then, so, with plantar fasciitis, it can go, a few different ways. Some people, it seems, are able to get it under control pretty quickly, but yours just seemed to keep coming back. And you definitely, shared with the group your struggles, which is one of the things I love about the community, that we can be honest and kind of share the struggles, but at the same time be very positive and encouraging, and not kind of make it be this woe is me, I feel sorry for myself thing. So how, within yourself, how did you not let it kind of, just how did you keep going when it just seemed to, keep coming back or keep setting you back?
Well, it was really hard. I mean, and there were a lot of moments that were pretty bleak and awful. And I think for me, the thing that really came out of it was that ultimately it helped me figure out that I really do love running, and that this has become an important part of my life in ways that were much bigger than I understood. So, I spent an awful lot of time cross training, and I usually train with friends, but a lot of this was alone.
Yeah, as it usually is.
So, I would get up in the morning to go to the pool or go get on the bike. And I remember so many times just standing in my hallway, staring at my clothes, saying, "Are you going to go today?" But every day I went, because I just thought, yes, I am. This is what I want, and this is what I have to do. I know this is the next step. I keep believing that I will get better. And so today is the day to swim. Let's go.
And you did it, and you were able to keep going, and all that perseverance paid off. I'd love for you to tell us, or tell the listeners who don't know your story, what happened when you finally did get healthy.
Well, when I finally got healthy, I mean, I had a little miracle. I don't think everybody can count on this particular miracle, but I really had barely started back running. I started running probably in July. And I had a new coach I was working with, Mark, who I was really happy with. And I said, okay, I want to race. How soon can I do a 5K? And he said, well, as soon as you can string together 3 consecutive miles, you can go ahead and sign up for something. So I did. And so about 6 or 7 weeks after I actually started running, I ran a 5K and I got a PR, which was crazy. I mean, I have to say I don't race a lot of 5Ks, so I think that was part of the reason that I was able to make that happen. But I also did an awful lot of cross training while I was out, and I did do the No Watch Me for that race, which was really important, because I think if I had any idea how fast I was running, I would have totally panicked.
Yep, which is often the case. And again, I think, you say it's a miracle, but I think a lot of that does come down to what you just said there about cross-training. You did the work, and we often, put cross-training off, saying that it's not going to help us. It's not the same as running, but I think people underestimate the power of it. I mean, I know I ran a PR once off a month of straight pool running, and so I definitely believe that would be the case. And it's wonderful, and seeing, you continue to improve, which is great. And another thing I wanted to talk to you about is you're kind of known within the group for your meetups with other runners. Now, for those listeners who don't know this, we do have kind of a bit of a competition as to who is the most popular within the group, and how many people you can meet. Sarah and her coach, she just mentioned, Mark Zaleski, tend to be the two who are, meeting up with people the most. Now, for someone listening who, may go to events but doesn't ever meet new runners or get the opportunity to, see others, or maybe they have the chance to, maybe a Running for Real Superstars meet up, but they don't do it. Why is it good to kind of meet other people from all around the world?
Oh, I think it's incredibly exciting and inspiring, and just really fun to meet people from other places. I'm lucky that with my job, I tend to travel quite a bit. And so I've been able to make use of that to score a lot of points. In our contest.
Which isn't actually an official thing, by the way. It's just kind of a jokey thing we have.
No, it's really a joke. I mean, it's a joke. I think you connect with people in a really different way when you meet them in person. So even though I do think we have a lot of close relationships in the group online, there's some folks that I've met Florian is one, Karen Scobie is another, people where I also text with them privately and really feel like, oh, I'm developing a great relationship with this person. This is a really special thing. And so if you meet someone in person, you can kind of take things to the next step in terms of being able to talk or ask questions or whatever it is.
Yeah, which is great. And you are a member of a lot of groups. You often talk about the different groups that you're in. What is it about the Running for Real Superstars that you feel is different? What does that give you that maybe some of the other groups don't?
To me, to be honest, one of the things I like about Running for Real is it is, of course, an incredibly supportive, positive group. But there's also a lot of faster runners in there. So some of my other groups have more middle of the pack or back of the pack runners, which is fantastic also. But I was really looking to learn from people who are faster than I am. And so I have found Running for Real a great place for inspiration and really just knowledge about how to take your running to the next level.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. I did not know that. I guess I did know. I hadn't thought about it, but that is cool. Thank you for sharing. And then finally, to wrap up, let's ask you 2 of the Running for Real 4 questions. So starting with a high moment for you in your running.
Well, certainly getting that 5K PR was a pretty
Yep.
moment. That was a real surprise. Maybe the other one I would pick is my marathon PR, which I got at Philadelphia in 2015. I trained for that race with an extremely good friend, and then we ran the whole race together and crossed the finish line together. It was just a totally phenomenal experience. It was wonderful.
Amazing. That's so cool. I've always wanted to do that, so hopefully someday I can copy you there. But great. Thank you for sharing. And finally, a Running for Real moment.
Well, of course, the sad thing was the Running for Real time in the boot and the plantar fasciitis. And people certainly in the Superstars group know that I just trained for a marathon and then had incredibly hot weather. But I think the funniest moment that I had was actually when I was running with a friend on just a kind of training run. And we found a pet rat that was loose on the street. So this was one of those things where, runners discover things in their towns that you wouldn't see otherwise. And it was wintertime. And obviously this little guy was not a wild animal at all. As soon as we stopped, it crawled into my friend's hand. So we interrupted our run and took this little white rat to a local farm and said, please hang on to this guy. We're going to come back. And we ended up getting him a home with a professor of animal philosophy or something. So this rat really landed incredibly well. But that's one of the things I love about running is it just takes you out into the world and you discover things you would never, ever see otherwise.
So true. So true. Cool. Thank you. That is a really random, but definitely a Running for Real moment. So thank you so much for sharing, Sarah. This has been wonderful learning more about you, and I appreciate all that you do. And keep up the good work with the return to running as you continue to kind of blaze the trail. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks for building such a great community. It's a pleasure to be a part of it.
Pete, I am so excited to have you here on the Running for Real podcast. This is such a cool episode interviewing superstars themselves. So firstly, I want to begin with kind of your role in the community, the superstars community. You're kind of known for your humor, and I think probably the best known for running a half marathon, I think it was, as a unicorn. And I know a lot of the community got a kick out of that. And you've kind of sparked a bit of a unicorn craze within the group, which we absolutely love. But I just wondered, related to that, when it comes to like humor and just kind of making fun out of running situations, how important do you think that is to us to kind of, lighten the mood and make sure it is enjoyable?
Hi, Tina. First of all, I'm honoured to be here. I really am. In terms of the humour side, for me, it is very important. I'd say I'm certainly not one of the more competitive runners in the group. I don't like to say running is a hobby. It's far more than that for me, but I do it because it's fun. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy the running. So I just find I need to keep an entertaining side on it, keep it fun, and try not to take it too seriously at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And then, so when it came to the unicorn, running that as a half marathon, how did you decide upon a unicorn rather than, wearing a tutu or even dressing up at all?
I must admit there might have been a little bit of alcohol involved when I made the decision. And
what time was that, right? Oh, when you made the decision. Okay. I thought you were going to say when you were running it.
No. When I booked onto the half marathon originally. I knew it was going to be trails, it was going to be off-road, so it was never going to be a fast one. It was in December, a couple of weeks before Christmas, so in holiday season. And I booked it primarily just to keep me running in December and give me something just to, not so much train for, but just keep up the miles for. So, and then, yeah, I'd seen, it's actually from the Superstar community, I saw Alfred doing his, he posted his video running on the beach in a unicorn onesie. And for some reason, that just made me think, I could do a half marathon in that. It can't be hard. So I was on Amazon one evening, bought the onesie, and when it turned up at work the following week, I thought, oh dear, I remember buying that now.
Did you bought that when you had alcohol involved?
Yeah, might be. A couple of wines.
That's good.
And so I put it out there, and I said, if I can raise so much money for charity, I'll run in the onesie. But in the end, I thought, what the heck, I'll run in the onesie anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I did it for charity, and managed to raise, I think it's a few £100 for a very good charity. And yeah, hopefully raised a few smiles.
Oh, you definitely did.
It was meant to be for me, like I said, I just booked it without any serious intentions and no big ambitions. It was just meant to be for fun, really. But I must admit, when I sort of towed the line, I did get slightly overambitious and set off too hard. Decided I was going to try and race it, and made a few mistakes. But
it's okay. I think we all make that mistake sometimes. And what about okay? So with that unicorn, you said Alfred Jongva is the one who I guess inspired you to do that. And then recently we saw a photo that he had. He put up a photo of his hair being in a unicorn style. So we're waiting on you now to do your next step to take it to the next level. So you be thinking about that and see what you can do to raise your game when it comes to the unicorn stakes. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier that running's kind of a hobby for you. Now, when I spoke to you earlier, you said that running is a hobby, addiction, and a therapy. What did you mean by that for anyone who, maybe kind of feeling in the same boat and don't kind of take it as I have to run a PR every time or a PB and kind of, take it really seriously? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, for me, I suppose as a runner, for me, my main priority is my family. I've got 2 children, and balancing the running, work, my other interests, and the family, it can be hard. But I find if I don't run, mentally, I know about it. I find for me, I just look for time on the lone. I tend to run trails. I'm not really one for sort of pounding the pavements or sidewalks. I just like to be in the trails, in nature, out running. And if I miss out on that, I do find I suffer. Mm-hmm. So that's where I suppose the therapy side comes in. I suppose it helps me gather my thoughts. And when you get that runner's high, there's just nothing quite like it.
Oh, so true.
And so that's I suppose, the hobby side, the therapy side, and the addiction. I mean, it all sort of comes together. I don't know. I think maybe with the weather recently and a few things going on, I haven't been feeling it with the running, but sometimes you have to make yourself go out there, and I don't think you ever regret going out there. Sometimes you don't want to, but when you make yourself, I don't think anyone ever regrets it once they get out there.
So
and
true.
Like I say, it's just all for me this year. I'm really trying to focus on the balance side of things. Mm-hmm. I think that's the tricky part.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you're right with, you never regret going out there unless, of course, you are running on an injury. Then we're not kind of saying that should be, you should go out if you know that you're going to get make your injury worse. But if it's a motivational issue, then definitely I think you're exactly right. And I'd love for you to just explain to the listeners about what happened recently with you and struggling with your motivation within the community, as it is such a funny story and it worked. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd set my alarm. But for me, like I say, balancing the family, for me to run in the week, usually I can get out one evening, but any other time it involves getting up early. So twice recently I set my alarm for 5 a.m. so I could get the early morning running. And I actually woke up before the alarm went off. I think one time my son had been up in the night and he'd been in, and I thought, no, I'm not feeling it. So I turned the alarm off, slept in. Not a problem, didn't regret it. Happened again last week, and I woke up at 4:30 and just thought, oh, that's annoying. The alarm's going to go off in half an hour. I just turned it off again. So the next day I thought, no, I've got to get my running. So I going to set the alarm for 5, and I just put it out there into the community with the superstars. Look, I want to run at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's twice recently I was meant to do that, and for various reasons I didn't. And I just put it out there. Can you please just hold me accountable? If I don't run tomorrow, make me explain myself. And the community more than stepped up to it. It's some of the posts were great. Even at 5 a.m. on the dot, I was being messaged. So,
really?
There's some great people out there. Yeah.
Can you share with us who those people were who reached out to you, if you remember?
Oh, I mean, in particular, Eddie, who I think would be sort of superstar of superstars. Troy as well, Troy Hansen, again, absolute superstar. And there's 2 other people in the community as well who said, oh, I've been a bit the same as well recently. I tell you what, if you run, I'll run. So it's just great. When I put it out there, I literally thought, just if one person says, yeah, I'll hold you to account, that's all you expect. But with the community, you just kind of, every time you're overwhelmed by the response that you get.
For sure. And I thought it was funny. A few people were even like, I woke up in the night and I wondered if he went for his run. So, just another example of how wonderful it is. And what is it about the community that you like the most?
I think that for me, it's the level of debate that goes on. I'll pick a slightly obscure example as a male, but there was a conversation, a debate not so long back, maybe about 2 months back, about, and it was posted by a woman, obviously, asking just about other women's experiences of running around periods and how that works. And it's just the resources that were put forward, the opinion. It was just, I can't say I followed it in any detail, but it was just great for superstars to be able to have that level of debate on a meaningful topic. And I don't know where else they would get that.
Yeah.
That's what it's brilliant. And there was just no stupid comments. Everyone was really supportive. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what I love about it.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I'll say also, I can't remember ever seeing anyone posting whether they should have a Garmin or a Sunto. Just stupid questions like that. It just doesn't happen. It's just all either positive, it's supportive. I can't remember seeing anything that's less than sort of top quality support, really.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you enjoy it, and we obviously appreciate you within your role within the community, especially for making us laugh and just keeping things lighthearted and also giving advice too. So thank you for your role. And just to round things up here, maybe tell us a high moment in your running.
I think for me, I'd say I've only done 1 marathon so far, and I trained hard for it. This was back in September. It was the Purbeck Marathon, which is, again, it comes back to running trails. I don't like running on the road so much, so it was all off-road, lots of elevation, lots of styles. Would you know what they are in America?
Well, I guess for anyone listening, it'd be kind of essentially like a fence, but there's a gap in the fence. You still have to climb it, but it's not quite as high as a normal fence. Yeah,
like a fence with a built-in step. So
there you go.
You're kind of crossing over fences, and it wasn't conducive to a fast race. But I gave it my all, and I finished pretty much on my target time. But I was just so happy I got to the end, and the final 200 or 300 meters, my legs I could feel they were about to go. And I knew I had given it everything I could. I couldn't have done any more on the day. I got to the finish line and I felt spent. And I think that's just such a great feeling.
Yeah, it is.
It's all relative. I mean, for the amount of training I put in, I probably did as much as I could, and I got as much out of it on the day as I could. And I think that's just such a great result. When you know you've given it your all, you've done your best. You just can't do any more than that, really.
So true. Love that. Thank you for sharing. And then finally, running for real moment.
I think probably for me, other than the usual pooping and toenails, which I think most runners suffer with. I certainly do. I'll come back to the Unicorn half marathon, and I suppose the fact it was a half marathon, I knew from the outset it was going to be 15 miles long. But when I got to mile 15 and the end was nowhere in sight, I was a bit downhearted, let's say. I think I lost the will to live, and just really mentally, I hit the wall big time. The onesie was getting quite wet by this point. It was heavy. I was struggling. I started looking at my watch, wondering whenever it was going to finish. And yeah, I really hit the wall. And basically, I was quite pleased it was the last race of the year, because it did go a bit wrong. And it made me just, I suppose, sit back and think, why did it go wrong? What did I do wrong? What should I have done? And just really get my head back in the game.
Yeah.
And learn from it, really.
I think that is a good example and something that most runners probably go through at some point. So thank you for being, honest with us and sharing something that wasn't particularly great, but definitely we all go through. And like you said, you learned from it. So thank you for sharing. Well, Pete, thank you so much for these questions. This has been interesting learning more about you, and we appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Thanks for everything you do in the community. It's amazing.
Lauren, welcome to the Running for Real podcast. I am really excited that you are here, and you are going to have an interesting thing to talk about in your segment here, and people are going to love it. I think you know what it's going to be. Maybe they don't, but thank you so much for being here right now.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I am excited, and we're going to dive right in with the random thing about you, which is you are kind of known within the group for your love of corgis. But it's not just about a love of corgis. You've taken it one step further. So tell us about how deep your love for corgis goes and, some of the things that you do just in your daily life.
Sure. So outside of running, I'm very big on my dog, Missy. She is a Pembroke Welsh Corgi. And I wasn't really a big Corgi person before we got her. We adopted her, which was about 3 years ago. She has just been the light of my life. We take her pretty much everywhere. And she goes to all these meetups around New Jersey, where I'm from, and she plays with a whole bunch of different corgis. So she has like her own little friend group, which is so weird. But she's just such a great support for me. And she's just been, that's why I'm just so in love with her. And she has a huge internet presence. She has a huge friend group. She's just like, has her own social life basically that, may sound a little weird, but I guess it's 2018. It's popular, right? To have your dog all over the internet.
Yeah, and you definitely have one of the most popular corgis out there, other than maybe the Queen. She has probably a little more.
Definitely beats me by a huge landslide.
But it's still funny seeing how Missy's kind of, like you said, internet presence. She is popular in her own right, which is really cool and kind of the dream for a lot of people who are dog owners. Now, if anyone wants to check that out, I will have links in the show notes so you can go see about Missy and learn more and kind of follow along with her. So maybe Missy will make some new friends after this interview. Now, I want to talk about you, as we only have a short segment here. Now, when I asked you what we could kind of talk about when it comes to you, you told me that you were always kind of told to give up running, that you were never going to be an athlete. Now, I think a lot of people can resonate with that. So I'd love for you to share, what your experience was with that and why you decided to keep going despite what people were saying.
Sure. So I've always been really interested in running, even when I was younger as a teenager, mostly from a weight loss perspective. I just wanted to keep active. So when I was younger, I would be on my parents' treadmill. I would try my very best to be a part of the running portions of gym class in high school. But I noticed that my feet were hurting me when I was running. And so I wouldn't be able to run for a long amount of time, or I would have to take walking breaks in between. And so I went to a medical professional, and this was many, many years ago, who told me that as long as I didn't want to be an athlete, I could live my life. So I always thought of running as run walking. Maybe I adopted it before Jeff Galloway did. I don't know, but that's how I always just treated running. I started doing it more often, I want to say about 6 years ago. I was dealing with some gastrointestinal issues and I wanted to help my digestion. So being active and running was a good way to do that. I did my first 5K that year. And then running just kind of dropped off for me. Life got busy, things got in the way until it was brought up to do a 10K a couple of years ago. And then I started running more and more often. And so I went to a new doctor who basically told me that the other doctor was wrong and said, I could run. And that he said that his new goal was to get me to run pain-free within 5 years. So we've been working on that plan. Mm-hmm. So far, it's been up and down. And that's mostly because I have flat feet, but that's okay. Or accidental injuries, which always happens. But it's okay. I'm working with a great team now and I'm really confident. And it's funny because people still tell me, like other people, I say to them, I'm doing all of this because I still want to run. I still want to be active. And they kind of look at me and they're like, why? You can do yoga, you can do, cycling, you can do swimming, you can do something else that isn't so intense on your body. And I just refuse to listen to that. I just want to keep running. It helps me feel better. It gives me the opportunity to disconnect, to just be really. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love most about it. And I don't want to lose that feeling when I'm out on the road.
That's so true. And I bet you every person listening has experienced that in some way. I know I definitely have. And that's me being a professional runner. I still have family and friends who have said to me over the years, oh, why are you still doing that? You don't need to do this, Tina. So I bet you everyone listening has heard people say that. So it's great to hear, you say that and know that people can, get over that and kind of run despite, and like you mentioned to me before, kind of stubbornness comes into it a lot, but I would be guessing that most people listening here are pretty stubborn, and thank you for sharing your story there. And you've really adapted my no watch me kind of movement, I guess, where you run by effort, you wear your watch but don't look at it. Why have you found that running by effort and not running by paces works best for you? And you said running is up and down, but what is it about running by effort that kind of is the best way so far?
I think it's easy for me to get obsessive about numbers. I'm a type A personality, and I like the idea of hitting targets and hitting goals. And to me, that involves numbers. And when you take the numbers out of the equation, it's much easier to think, this is, I can do something different. Like I can not think about the numbers and I can think about how it feels. And if it feels, really good on a good day, then that's great. I can keep moving. Mm-hmm. And I like that approach better because then I don't have to beat myself up and say, I did such a horrible run today because I didn't hit a 10-minute mile pace. Mm-hmm. And but my runs now are like the horrible runs are the ones where I feel like my legs are like weights, like dead weights. Yep. And that's what I consider a bad run, or I consider a bad run to be based on the weather. Like if it's a really hot and sticky day, like I know that I'm not going to have like the best run ever. And that's okay. I think it's just the No Watch Me movement that you've created has been so helpful in just changing my mindset, changing what the idea of perfection is. And I've loved it. It's been so helpful for me. It's kept me mostly off the injury scale. A lot of the injuries that I've had are just accidental because I live in a city area and there's cracks in the sidewalks. So it's not really about pushing myself too hard. It's more of just, the environment that I'm in. Yep. But it's been so helpful for me just to keep a mindset that I go out and I just say, I'm going to do this many miles today. And, if the run is kind of sucky, oh, well, but if it's a good run, then it'll be great and I'll be happy and I'll be, excited. So,
I love that. Yeah. And that's kind of the best way to approach it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for explaining that. And then just one more thing, when it comes to the community, you've talked a lot about your husband, Luke, and how he trains with you, you run together. So for someone listening who kind of has, their run buddy, like maybe it's a friend, maybe it's, a husband like you, what does the Running for Real community give you that in some ways you could say, well, Luke gives me everything I need when it comes to running. What does the community give for you that maybe, your outside life might not give?
I don't really know too many runners, and I don't like the idea of running groups, like going out for a group run, because it kind of stresses me out, because then I start thinking, in the competitive mindset, like I have to beat this person. Whereas my husband is very understanding in terms of how slow I am, and he's willing to be slow as well. And we also run separately too, so it's not like we're always together. And really, his companionship in terms of running is more of like a conversation. Where we can talk about our days, we can talk about the news, we talk about our dog. It really just depends on the day. So it's really just nice to have that conversation. In terms of running in groups, though, in person, I think it would just be more competitive. Whereas online, I think it's a different medium. People really try and get to know each other. People are really supportive, and understanding of what your goals are. And it's more easy to explain. I've run in groups before. I've gotten, the last time I ran in a group was Global Running Day last year. And I went out so fast in the first mile up with everyone that by the end, I was one of the last people because I was so tired out. And I was like, man, this really isn't for me. I don't want to think about, who's running ahead of me and who's behind me. I just want to think about just getting, from the start, just getting up and going out there, and then, what the end goal is. So,
so true.
Online, it's so much easier because everybody has different goals, and I'm not running against them every day.
Very true. Very true. Good way of looking at it as well. Okay. And Lauren, just to wrap up, 2 quick questions for you here for the Running for Real 4, but we're going to do 2. What is a high moment for you?
I think my high moment was the first time that I had a run where I wasn't walking, that I did the run actually I did the first 5K that I've ever done. I did the 5K mostly running. And I was like, wow, I can really do this full stop running, without walking. And then as I continued to do that more and more, I got more and more excited. So just the idea of not stopping to take a break, even though that's always a good thing. Don't get me wrong, but I just love the idea of just being able to just run.
Yeah. And that's so cool. Thank you. Really cool.
Yeah. I don't think that people really think about that too. They always think of walking as maybe a weakness. It's not really a weakness, but for me, it was always just part of the course. I just didn't think that I can do more. So being able to see that I can do more was really exciting.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. And I'm sure a lot of people understand that, especially if they are a newer runner, kind of working their way into the running world. And finally, Lauren, what about a running for real moment for you?
Oh God, there have been so many. Oh man, I like to always talk about one of the runs that I haven't had a good run, because I always like to think of those as something to learn from. Yeah. And the one that always sticks in my brain was I was doing a workout with your training plan actually last year, and it was in the 90s, or at least it was real.
I remember you talked about this. Yeah.
Or something like that. And I was already having some hip issues. They weren't major hip issues, just a niggle, but my hip was bothering me essentially. And we went out to the track and we started, and I just looked up and I was like, this is the worst idea. I should have just not come out today. It was just so hot and sticky, and it was just making my hip feel so much worse. And I remember the cool down, we just walked back, which is a pretty far walk. The track is pretty far out from us. So it was just I was just I can't run back. I don't think it'll work, because it was just so grueling. And I just remember and that was the first time where I really learned how the weather can be a part of training.
Absolutely.
And it works in the winter too. I mean, the day that I injured myself this year, I was snowing and it was below freezing out. And so, you just have to really be careful and just think of all the elements when you go out there. It's not just I'm going to strap on my shoes and go. There's more to it, especially if you're pushing yourself in a workout or you're pushing yourself in a long run. There's a lot of factors that go into it outside of how your body is feeling that day.
Absolutely. And thank you for reminding us of that, because it is really important. Okay, Lauren, well, thank you so much for sharing your insights, and we really appreciate you and all that you do in the community. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Finally, we are closing in on spring, and that means hopefully the worst of the weather is behind us and we can start thinking about those spring races, the experiences that we get to enjoy so much more, knowing what we overcame in those moments of doubt and struggle when the weather was just being plain cruel. And maybe there might be a few more treadmill runs in there, but as many of others have seen, V can be so helpful, not just on your treadmill runs, but she can also make your motivation skyrocket as you have someone to keep you company and keep you accountable with your training. We all know that makes a huge difference. If you've always wanted a personal trainer but couldn't afford to keep paying their expenses year after year, or maybe you're just a little bit too shy to take that step, V as the first AI personal trainer can be that for you. And she's so realistic and lifelike, changing her words of inspiration each time, with giving you clear, crisp music and podcasts in between her words. You're going to love her. You can enter to win your own V by visiting getv.com/runningforreal. Earlier on in the show, I mentioned that Body Health Perfect Amino made a big difference to me, and it really did, especially at this time of year when marathon training starts and things begin to get really tough. This is always a time we feel a bit overwhelmed as the accumulation of miles starts to catch up, especially when combined with those hard, heavy training runs. I found that taking Body Health Perfect Amino made my body recover from training that much quicker, meaning I could really attack those long runs and hard sessions. But it's not just for marathoners, it can be runners of any distance. If you get sore or fatigued during training, Body Health Perfect Amino will help you recover too, and here's why. Your body absorbs 99% of the amino acids in Body Health Perfect Amino, compared with only 48% in eggs and 32% in meat or fish. I would take them immediately after a run, and as they absorb within 25 minutes, that would give me a nice amount of time to stretch, another component of staying healthy. Then you can enjoy your post-race meal. Get 10% off at bodyhealth.com using coupon code TINA10. Well, what did you think? I absolutely loved getting a little glimpse into the life of these runners, and they can become your friends too, I mean it, if they aren't already. You can find them by going to tinamuir.com/superstars, or you can find all the notes from today, all the mentions in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 51. Now, in there's going to be lots of links to Lauren's famous dog, Missy, who is actually far more famous than Lauren let on in this episode. And it's kind of crazy how much publicity Missy has had. So make sure you go check that out. Now, I just want to remind you that the Running for Real strength training program is available for pre-sale now and will be available to you on April 1st for the first time since January. We often sell out and we have limited spaces available. So if you're injured, returning to running from an injury, or have a big race planned for later this year, now is the time to start running. If you're running Boston in a few weeks, maybe not now the best time, but otherwise this is the best time for you to give it a go. There is a reason I strength trained all the way up to the birth of my daughter. Yes, even that day. And I started strength training again 2 weeks before I tried to run. You can find out more at tinamuir.com/runstrong. Now, next week we have Dave Collins, and boy, is this a good one. I mean, talk about running for real. This is probably the most uncensored one yet, and from a professional very high up in the sports psychology and performance world. Dave Collins left my jaw on the floor, and another superstar, Von Johnson, who helps me with the podcast, said it was her favorite episode yet, so do not miss that one. Be sure to let me know what you think of this episode, and go join the Running for Real Superstars if you haven't already. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.